Imagine it's the middle of the night. The fire has almost burned out. Everyone around you is asleep. Then a sharp pain spreads across your stomach. Another follows a few minutes later. You know exactly what it means. Your baby is coming. There are no hospitals, no doctors, no painkillers, no ambulances. Only a small group of perhaps 30 people, living beneath the open sky somewhere in East Africa nearly 100,000 years ago. Today, childbirth is so medically supported that in many countries, over 95% of births take place with trained healthcare professionals. Yet for almost all of human history, every human being who has ever lived entered the world without modern medicine. So how did ancient mothers survive? The answer will change how you think about one of humanity's oldest traditions. Because the first midwives may have existed long before the first cities, the first writing, or even the first farms. In 1987, American anthropologist Karen Rosenberg proposed something called the obstetrical dilemma. Human evolution had created two competing pressures. Walking upright favored a narrow pelvis, but growing brains produced babies with increasingly larger heads. Those two changes collided during childbirth. Chimpanzees usually give birth in minutes. Their infants often emerge facing their mother, allowing her to guide the baby herself. Humans are different. Human babies usually rotate several times while passing through the birth canal. They typically emerge facing away from their mother. That position makes it much harder for the mother to lift the baby safely or untangle the umbilical cord without assistance. Except there was a problem. Fossils cannot preserve a helping hand. Bones can reveal age, disease, and injuries. They cannot tell archaeologists who comforted a woman during labor or who caught her newborn. So scientists had to look somewhere else. In 1988, anthropologist Wenda Trevathan compared childbirth across humans and other primates. She argued that human birth is unusually difficult because of our anatomy, making assistance during labor not just helpful, but potentially a long-standing part of human evolution. The idea became known as obligate midwifery, not because every birth required a professional midwife, but because another trusted person nearby could dramatically improve the chances of survival. That's not the whole story. Archaeologists have uncovered another clue hidden in childhood itself. At sites such as Dolny Vestanis and other Upper Paleolithic settlements dating back more than 25,000 years, researchers found evidence that multiple generations often lived together. Older adults, teenagers, and young children shared the same camps. This matters because humans are unusual among mammals. Human females often live for decades after menopause. Evolutionary biologist Kristen Hawkes helped popularize the grandmother hypothesis during the 1990s. Her research among the Hadza of Tanzania suggested that grandmothers increased the survival of grandchildren by gathering food and supporting young mothers. If older women helped raise children after birth, could they also have helped before birth? No fossil can answer that directly, but across hundreds of traditional societies documented by anthropologists during the last 2 centuries, experienced older women frequently assisted younger mothers during labor. Different cultures developed different customs, yet one pattern appeared again and again. Knowledge stayed with experience. Birth wasn't learned from books, it was learned by watching. But here's where it gets stranger. Childbirth wasn't only dangerous because of the baby. It was dangerous because humans give birth earlier than many people realize. Human babies are born surprisingly helpless compared to many other mammals. A foal can stand within hours. A newborn wildebeest can run the same day. Human infants cannot even hold up their own heads. Evolution traded maturity for survival. If babies stayed inside the womb until their brains reached a more developed stage, their heads would likely become too large to pass safely through the mother's pelvis. Instead, much of brain growth happens after birth. During the first year alone, a baby's brain nearly doubles in size. That solution allowed larger brains, but it also meant newborns required constant care from the very first moment. One person was rarely enough. Around 2009, anthropologist Sarah Blaffer HRDY described humans as cooperative breeders. Unlike most primates, human children often survive because many adults contribute to their care: parents, grandparents, siblings, aunts, uncles, and unrelated members of the group. The system may not have started after birth. It may have started during labor itself, because if one exhausted mother struggled alone, another pair of hands could make the difference between life and death. Around 2011, researchers studying the evolution of human childbirth reached a striking conclusion. The challenge wasn't simply giving birth. It was surviving everything that came immediately afterward. A mother who had just delivered a baby had lost blood, energy, and body heat. A newborn could not walk, feed itself, or even regulate its own temperature efficiently. For the first hours of life, both depended on the people around them. That may explain why humans became one of the most cooperative species on Earth. But cooperation alone could not solve every danger. Before modern medicine, one of the greatest threats was infection. Today, Antibiotics and sterile equipment have made childbirth dramatically safer. Before the discovery of germs by French scientist Louis Pasteur in the 1860s, nobody knew bacteria even existed. Ancient people certainly didn't, yet many traditional societies still developed practical habits that unknowingly reduced risk. Fresh water was used to clean mothers. Fires provided warmth during cold nights. Clean plant fibers or animal hides often served as bedding instead of bare soil. None of these methods eliminated infection, but they could improve the chances of survival. Except there was another problem. Not every baby arrived easily. Even today, complications such as breech birth, where the baby's feet or hips emerge first, occur in about 3 to 4% of pregnancies near full term. Without skilled assistance or modern surgery, these births could become life-threatening. Someone had to recognize when something was wrong. Someone had to stay calm. Someone had to remember what worked the last time. That kind of knowledge cannot evolve in a single lifetime. It must be passed from one generation to the next. This is where culture becomes just as important as biology. Unlike most animals, humans don't rely only on instinct. We inherit information. Every successful birth taught a lesson. Every difficult birth became a story remembered by the group. Over thousands of generations, those stories accumulated into practical knowledge long before anyone could write them down. In other words, childbirth became one of humanity's oldest classrooms. Archaeological discoveries hint at just how much communities valued vulnerable members. At Shanidar Cave, archaeologists uncovered the remains of several Neanderthals dating back roughly 60,000 years. Some individuals had survived severe injuries that would have made hunting impossible without long-term care from others. The site doesn't tell us directly about childbirth, but it reveals something equally important. Ancient humans cared for people who could not care for themselves. If they protected injured adults for years, it becomes easier to imagine them surrounding a woman during one of the most dangerous moments of her life. That's not proof, but it fits the larger pattern emerging from anthropology, archaeology, and evolutionary biology. Then there's another clue hidden inside your own body. Human babies are born with an instinct to grasp a finger. Mothers naturally produce hormones such as oxytocin during labor and breastfeeding, strengthening bonding and encouraging caregiving. These biological systems don't operate in isolation. They support social behavior between mothers, infants, and the people helping them. Evolution wasn't shaping only stronger bodies. It was shaping stronger relationships. By around 12,000 years ago, agriculture began appearing in places like the Fertile Crescent. Villages grew larger. Specialized healers and experienced birth attendants became more common. Eventually, civilizations such as ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia recorded advice for assisting childbirth in some of the earliest medical texts. But those written records were not the beginning. They were the continuation of a tradition that may have stretched back hundreds of thousands of years. So, who helped ancient mothers during childbirth? The answer was probably not one person. It was the group, an experienced older woman sharing knowledge earned through decades of observation, a grandmother calming fear, sisters preparing water and fire, partners offering support, relatives protecting the camp while everyone else focused on a single new life. Before hospitals existed, humanity itself became the delivery room. Every person alive today is connected by an unbroken chain of births stretching back through countless generations. Most of those births happened without modern medicine, yet enough mothers survived to keep that chain intact. You exist because, somewhere in the distant past, when one woman faced the hardest moment of her life, she probably wasn't alone. And long before humans built civilizations together, they first learned how to bring each other into the world together.